Check one, check two. Happy Thursday. Man, I'm losing track of time. I gotta get it together. I gotta get it together. You see it? Well, it's kind of cut off a little bit, but yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about privacy today. You see the thumbnail. Privacy is personal security. We're gonna talk a little bit about what's up, Tobias. How you doing, man? Glad you could join me. Uh, Talk about privacy certifications, kind of money and a career in there. But first, of course, we're going to go over what privacy is. There's some good information in there because I always put privacy, privacy security with data security. Those are actually two separate things. So I need to. So we're gonna go over that too. Uh, Let me know if you got any cybersecurity questions, go and throw them in the box. We can talk about them. We about to get started here in this quick second. Let's see. So there we go. Let's fire that up. So my PowerPoint looking good. So we get into there. What's up, boys? How you doing? All good. I got some info for you, Tobias. I'm gonna start off with that for you right there, Tobias. The average privacy pro salary increased by more than 6,000. Of course, this was in 2019. 2019 it was 134,000, and 2021 it's 140,000. That kind of threw me off when I saw that. Like for privacy, and we're gonna get in there. Privacy is just getting so big with the. We get hacked every week, ransomware negotiations. Everybody's getting hacked, so the privacy, I guess, of the United States citizens are becoming almost null and void once again because they're all out there getting hacked and their information taken over. So I was surprised when I saw that for just privacy. Because I deal with cybersecurity, we just lump it all together, right? Part of cybersecurity is data security and private security. I wouldn't put its own I would never put like privacy, and it's really only in its own security family. Even salute, boss. How you doing? Oh, that's cool. I'm going over that certification. That's one of the 5 certifications in there. That's cool, Tobias. Somebody asked me to do privacy video. I couldn't remember if you was Tobias or somebody else. Somebody asked me to touch on privacy, so I thought I would dig into it. And so that's interesting. How long you been in the privacy part, Tobias? So once again, the average salary, of course, you got to have some years underneath your belt, though. But it's $140,000, which is that's a good number, right? So we get started, and I'm sure the rest of the people follow in. Like I said, I just thought that was interesting from a certification is. Uh, so is this chopping my slides on? Let me see if I can make my screen a little smaller. So we'll be chopping it on. See what that looks like. There it is. That's much better. Make the slides a little small. Privacy. Oh, it's still chopped on. Let's see if that moves down. Privacy. Like Tapai says, its own security family, its own security family, and it's a big piece of, especially with the hacks and stuff that's happening today. So I'm just saying if it's gonna look a little better on my let me see what it looks like on my phone for privacy. So that's interesting. Tobias is already kind of leaning that way, making those moves for that to be it. Right. So let's see. It doesn't look bad. So I'm just gonna do it like that. So since it was cutting my slides off. We're about to get started. Once again, if you got any questions, just kind of throw them in the box and we can chop them up about it. Okay, that looks better. Trying to get these slides to go. So we're just doing like that. Look like on my screen it was cutting them off. The difference between data security and private security. Data security is not privacy. Privacy also is not data security, right? These two terms are often used interchangeably, but there are distinct differences as well as similarities. And I'm bad about that. I use data security and private security interchangeably, but they're not the same. Yes, data and security and privacy has common goals to protect sensitive data, but they have very different approaches for achieving the effect. Data security focuses on protecting the data from theft and breaches, whereas privacy governs how data is being collected, shared, and used. Right. So I'm gonna state that again. So privacy governs how data is being collected and used. Right. So that's the difference. Right. When you put those two together, and I'm bad, and I'm gonna have to really focus on myself not using those interchangeably, right? Privacy governs how data is being collected, shared, and used. So now, when you start talking about social media, right? How is your data being collected, shared, and used, right? We know all those things sell your data, parse your data, use your data for people to actually sell stuff to you, right? That's one of the main differences, right? So privacy now is we're gonna put it in its own security family, all right, and use it accordingly. All right. So Tobias, how's your studying going for the CDPS? Like I said, I'm gonna get to that in one of my other slides talking about privacy certification. And this is the interesting thing about privacy. People give away personal data for an app. Well, they tell their innermost secrets to all their friends and their families and so on. Take all kind of pictures for the world to see. However, privacy still is huge. Privacy still matters, right? But I think we want privacy on our own terms, and I don't think we think about that. Right? I always think about data getting stolen, and what does that mean, right? And if it's something I put out there that I want, and somebody steals it, what kind of compromising position could that put me in, right? So those are the things that are that makes me think about that, right? And we always think cybersecurity, like I said, privacy is embedded in there, but we never like pick it up, right? So the laws that we know and things to worry about. The big one up there, of course, is GDPR, right? That's the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, right? NYEDF, CCPA, which is California. California always got to have their own security relations. HIPAA, FERPA, and COPPA, all right? Existing U.S. based privacy laws, right? Because HIPAA, who can you share your health data with? The privacy of, taking care of your data. FERPA's education, COPPA's child laws, right? The bottom is rogue. It has to do with Brazil, China, and Russia. But the other one, like I said, COPPA, children, FERPA, and HIPAA, all right? The weird thing is they were doing work with dentists because even if you go to dentist, right? Let's say you have HIV, they have to, use special equipment, but a lot of times they were putting those files in red, right? So when people see your file and it's red, people kind of knew what that meant, right? So that was hurting your privacy, right? If you had some kind of disease and your dentist is not, controlling your data properly. Right? I think hospitals are set up to do that more, right? Because that's their legislation type thing. So this is a slide, and I met a guy. He specializes in privacy. I need to stop struggle streaming. I got to start getting my interviews back going on. I got to change my setup a little bit. So here's some just action. Got a great slide. Blue is who's introducing new legislation. Uh, Canada, darker blue is who's in committee, who's in cross committee, and who's passed stuff, and who's signed, and who's doing nothing. Right. So you can see it's half the nation's doing nothing, right? Because they ain't great. But there's a lot of people In blue in chambers and introduce stuff, right? So that means privacy is coming. It's getting there, right? Sign, we all know California is different, so they're using GDPR. So right, so the privacy is in California, right? Nevada and Maine, right? So the middle of the country is going to start doing stuff, right, with privacy. How that's going to affect you? How is your company going to be ready for that, right? We're going to talk about some of the things that we think are coming down the pipe that's going to affect um, privacy. Of course, we starting off with the big guy. Let me make that a little bigger. The GDPR, everybody knows that's the hardest. GDPR, personal data impact customers. Any information related to identify or identifiable natural person, data subject, and identify a natural person is one who can be identified directly or indirectly, in particular by referencing to an identifier such as name, identification number, location, online identifier, one or more factors specific to physical, psychological, genetic, mental, economic, cultural, social identity of that natural person. Right. So those are the things GDPR is talking about is how do you identify people? What's up, Wilton? Hope you feeling a little better, man. So from GDPR, of course, that's the hardest privacy compliance. So that's what we're going to do. Of course, Cali's implementing that out there, right? The other part of GDPR is sensitive data, typically impact employees. Processing personal data, revealing racial, ethnic origin, political opinion, religious, philosophical beliefs, trade unions, and the process of genetic data biometric for the purpose of uniquely identifying a natural person, data concerning health or data concerning a natural person, sex life or sexual orientation may be prohibited, right? Now we're talking about GDPR sensitive data, right? So there's three levels of GDPR, right, for sensitive info. Um, Also, CCPA is California Consumer Protection Agency. Add in the following: real name, alias, postal address, unique person identifier, online identifier, internet protocol address, email address, account name, social security number, driver's license ID, passport number, or other similar identifier. Right, so that's people trying to identify you. That's people trying to, companies. So once again, that's Cali, that's CCPA. All right, so we just kind of going over some privacy issues that's going to come up for companies. Right, security is a big thing, but privacy is going to be right behind it. Right? What's up, Jam? Good evening, Professor. What do you think about people who are reluctant to do any shopping online or put any information online, doing due to being safarized or that it could be stolen? I'm kind of with that, but I mean, it's doing business online is just the new normal, right? Especially when you talk about the pandemic, right? People are getting food delivered and all things. What I would tell people to do if they're nervous is I would just get a credit card with a smaller limit. Just use the bigger retailers because they theoretically care a little bit about security. Your Amazon, Walmart, just stay at your big retailers. Keep it to a small group of people. Use that one smaller credit card. Um, then if something happens, the cool thing, especially, is when you shop online, credit cards are used to getting stolen, so that's why the interest rate's so high. So 9 times out of 10, if somebody steals, and once you fill out the pertinent documentation, 9 times out of 10, the credit card company's gonna return your money. Why they want you to keep paying 20% and 18% on those charges? So JMI, I just think that's the new norm. So we're talking about some of the fines that are happening across the world and the country now. A lot of countries are fining big companies because they didn't take care of privacy, right? So HIPAA's been fairly low, but the EU in general, they had a fine against Google for $2.7 billion. It was GDPR fine. I need to go figure out if Google actually paid $2.7 billion. The weird thing is Google can afford $2.7 billion. It's not going to break it. right? That's going to dent it, but it's not going to break it. Marriott had a $123 million privacy fine. British Airways had a $230 million privacy fine. It got dropped to 20 million because of COVID, but they have one. I think FTC fined Facebook some ungodly amount too. So privacy fines are happening. Privacy fines are a risk for corporations, and they're becoming more prevalent every day. Right? Is those fines? You just don't hear about them a ton, but they're out there. It's all about the data that is historically gathered and discarded. Start with what data must you have. So when we talk about how do we deal with privacy, the first question is what data must you have and you retain for doing business? Why do you need it? Right? Is this a minimum you need? How long do you need to keep it? And can you defend the above? Right. So we work for data. We have regulatory compliance to keep data for 7 years. We have some other things for keeping emails for 20 years. Right. So depending on company, what states you work for, what business, they tell you have to keep data for 7 years, 10 years. I've actually seen them for executives for up to 20 years, for emails and stuff for FOIA requests, right? Freedom of Information Act, right? So they want you to keep that information. So if you needed to do that, I wonder how much data gets stolen every day by creating false jobs. I actually did a video on that, JM. That is true. JM, how much data gets created from creating a false job at a ton? There's a lot of hackers creating false job prospects out there for, and when you fill all that out, they use it for spear phishing and hack you later. But that is correct. There's a ton of data out there. The one I did was on LinkedIn, I believe. So yeah, that's huge. That's an excellent statement. Be careful out there. There's a lot of fake recruiter jobs out there and fake. So if I see the fake recruiter job, I actually try to go to the website and confirm that same position. And if I'm actually doing applying for a job, I I'll try to go to the website and apply for the job, and I probably won't try to do it off the other job boards or anything, right? Because they usually list the company, so I usually go to that company and fill it out their website. Oh, let's see. Post privacy shield, standard contractor clause, binding and corporate rules that are only safe for transferring mechanisms. It's both expect both to be challenged. Only one way to survive is extreme due diligence. So let's back up. Post privacy shield is kind of insurance for that. The other part of that is in your contract, you should have standard language for how do you transfer information? How do we agree to how we're going to secure your information? So one of my jobs is the state agency I work for. When we send data to other even agencies within that state or even other private vendors, I want to review the security of your organization, right? At least at a high level. Is it all encrypted? How are you storing it? Hopefully, you in the cloud. My favorite one is AWS. Then we can talk about VPCs. We can talk about the database. We can talk about data at rest, AES 256, FIPS 140-2 encryption. How are you encrypting your backups, right? So we trying to do some due diligence on our side to check our vendors, right? Especially in the supply chain, right? Even if it's not supply chain, even if you're giving that on to somebody else, right? You're responsible for that data to, even when you give it to somebody else, right? You contractually most to make sure that they're at your security level, right? So that's the big deal is if I'm at DISA-6, CIS, HIPAA, when I give that data off to somebody else, I need to make sure they check that they're at the same security level I'm at. You know? Well, yes, and many parents have filed victims wanting to work from home and saving on. Oh, that's 100 facts, right? So Wilton chimed in on JM, right? You're trying to get those work from home jobs, those easy jobs, right? You got to make sure you're not getting scammed. Right. A lot of times, too, if it sounds too good, it probably is, right? If that's not industry standard, you want to double check for that. If there are other people you know in that industry and they're not working from home, right, you got to double check that. Right? Only way to survive is extreme due diligence. We just talked about some of that due diligence, right? Do a software review, security, look at their data center, right? Do all the things which you do all the things you would have expect to have to do. Data mapping, DPI, documentation is key. What a privacy shield. If you don't have it, privacy shield, renew it. All right. So that's what we're talking about too. Is what is insurance? How much it costs? How do we work with it? How do we make sure it's good? Right? CCPA. California will lead on privacy and on privacy law. Privacy fines as a revenue source. So what happens is big states, right? Revenue source for them is you get hacked, they sue you for losing their state's data, right? And they give you 10 million, 25 million. If you big, you can get $100 million fine, right? That's the way to fund that state, right? Which is kind of sucky to say. Expect individual states to meet or one up California. They believe New York, Illinois, and Washington. If you don't have a privacy shield, apply for it. Right. So they think New York, Illinois, and Washington is going to do GDPR. GDPR is something harder than GDPR. Right. So that's where getting our certifications, like my man Tobias, understanding privacy, understanding security checks you need to do for privacy as well as data security. Right. We're going to touch a few of those. Right. So they believe it's through a blend approach, right? What does that mean? Blend HIPAA, blend CCPA, blend GDPR rights, because you want to cover everything. You want to make sure everything's on point, right? It would be remarkable difficult to address regulations on a one-off basis. The homepage alone will look like ransomware. Do not sell, what data is held, mandatory consent, cookie banners, et cetera, et cetera. Right. One big deal about GDPR is when they say you erase their data, you erase their data. Right. I've dropped my Facebook account a couple times because I got tired of it, but when I went back in there and put in my same email, it brought all my stuff back up. Right. Obviously, it didn't erase me. Right. It marked me as erased, but it didn't erase any of my posts. Right. So when I said undelete me or bring me back, right, it had that. Right. So focus on the blend approach. They believe it should be 60% GDPR, 20% CCPA, and 15% NYDFFS. Provides capabilities to adjust and not just rebuild. Right. So when you're talking about privacy along with your cybersecurity program, like I said, how do you handle it? And like I said, we're going to touch it some of that. I was surprised reading this cookies because cookies track you on the web. How much program you have to have the cookies um, to cut them on, cut them off, track you, not track you. So that's real. That was a real big deal with GDPR. That kind of surprised me. All right. James, I noticed recently a lot of websites ask you to accept cookies. Is that my data at risk by accepting those? I wouldn't say it's at risk. They're letting you know that when you do that, they're tracking you on the web, right? And that's what I'm showing you right there on the screen. That's good call, JM. We use cookies and share information about your site for visits to personalized content and ads, provide social media features, and analyze traffic using tools such as Google Analytics. We do not sell your personal information. You can view privacy notice, cookie policies, and how to exercise your rights by clicking the following, right? Because Google Analytics is about tracking you across the web, right? That's cookie, analysis. What's going on with it? That's the same question before I can see attackers using for you to accept. No, that's true. Uh, Pragmatic and defensible in GDPR, right? Privacy notice updates. Everybody see data and sovereignty. Data stays in the EU. So one of the big deals with Disastigs, Blue Team, and stuff is they say CONUS. Right? What does that mean? That's continental United States. Your data for NIST, which is federal stuff, cannot leave the continental US. Right? Data mapping, DPI, cookie banners, privacy preference, consent, opt-in to track, DSR complaints, data portability enabled, legal agreements, privacy shield for HR and consumer data, security and privacy by design, strict data breach notification SLAs, right? So one thing we always ask all of our clients is if you think you've been hacked or something noticed, you gotta let us know within a day, right? Because if you think you've been hacked, we need to start tracking on our system to figure out if we actually been hacked, right? So those are some of the things from a privacy point and even data protection that weighs into that, right? So the CCPA is Consumer California Privacy Act, right? Privacy notice updates, data mapping, links on sites. Don't sell my data. What data are you holding or held? Do not track optional cookie banners and privacy centers, and optional opt into the program if you want to sell me stuff or track me or keep all that stuff alive, right? Because now, like, right, we pinpointing privacy and what privacy means to an organization, right? And like I said, I'm bad about that. I'm trying to open my eyes up. I'm strictly data security, cybersecurity. Privacy will get taken care of when I give you this great cybersecurity I'm about to give you, right? So it's something, I have to give it to someone. And I was surprised too, like I said, when we looked at the dollar amount, I got that slide coming up again. But what privacy managers make just by themselves, right? On that. So thinking in the terms, some of these are actually data security that helps you with privacy, right? Encryption at rest, AES 256, in transit, TLS 1.2 or higher, automated key rotation, consistent password policy, multi-factor authentication enabled for customers, employees, PCI compliant with fraud detection, outsource your processing, WAF and DDoS protection, all transactions are logged, routine vulnerability scan and pen testing, strict breach notification, notification of any profile changes and security designs, detailed documentation of platform, detailed documentation of data elements, and fell over between countries as desired. Right. So those are, I would call them data security things that help you with privacy. All right. So shout out to CL for me. Share this cast. I appreciate it. Once again, this was and I think my man Tobias was saying he was studying for one of these. Is Privacy Pro's average salary in 2021 was $140,529. Like I said, that's a big number. But of course, you have to do certifications, which we're going to talk about shortly. We're going to talk about the big five. I had to count the slides, the big five. The most popular one I saw was Certified Information Privacy Technologist. Demonstrates in-depth understanding of privacy from a technology perspective, the ability to enable development of secure software products, processes, services in order to ensure data privacy. The CPT also covers skills needed to protect data from being compromised in any way, as well as gauging familiarity with the advantages and challenges of new and emerging technology know-how, and implement these technologies in such a way to ensure customer privacy. Right. So for me, that was kind of deep. That almost sounded like the CISP. So that was a Certified Information Privacy Technologist. And here is Certified Information Privacy Manager. I've seen this one a lot. I've seen a lot of compliance directors have this certification. I think that kind of goes hand in hand usually with what they're talking about. Right? Certified Information Privacy Manager. CIPM, credentials focus on developing, implementing, maintenance, and managing of a privacy program. It is designed for professionals to execute and manage data privacy regulations in a day-to-day operation. CIPM tests knowledge and skills required for community company visions, organize a privacy team, create and execute a framework for privacy, communicate with different stakeholders, measure performance throughout privacy program, operational, and lifestyle. Right. So once again, that was a CIPM. Uh, I think this was this. Let me roll squad. Is this what? I think this is what. Is this what Tobias was studying? Yeah, I think this is what Tobias said he was looking into. Um, Certified Data Protection Officer, certification in managing uh, PCP, a commercial certification provider for ANSI. CDPO is designed for professionals with experience in data protection, validates functional knowledge required to apprise and advise controller and processors on fulfilling GDPR compliance requirements, monitor compliance, work together with concerned authorities, examine PRET option include certified data protection officer training, courses conducted by PCP. The courses includes practical components. This one I think is part of CISP. It's the health. I work with about 4 or 5 guys that actually have this. So when we talk about doing HIPAA, Uh, HCISP is certification is suitable for information security officers who are responsible for safeguarding and protecting health information. Validates expertise in implementing, managing, and evaluating privacy, security controls using policies and process developed by IC Squared. Um, uh, HCISP is the only certification that combines cybersecurity skills with privacy best practice and techniques. The HSCAMMEN's exam covers seven domains: health industry, information governance in health, information technology in health, regulatory and standards environment, privacy and security in healthcare, risk management, risk assessment, and third party risk assessment. Those are some things you get with the HSCT. Here it is. Tabachi just came up. Certified Data Privacy Solution Engineer. CDPSE is the first experience-based technical credential in data privacy domain. CDPSE demonstrates knowledge and skills and experience in privacy governance, privacy architecture, and life cycle. Those who wish to apply for certification under the early adoption program must have at least 5 years of professional experience and a minimum of 2 exam content outline domains, including CISA, CISM, CGSE, CRIC, FIP credentials. Holders are eligible for a 2 year experience waiting. With Tobias, you got 5 years, man. It says you need at least 5 years to apply for it. And two is I always talk about rolling with AWS and how AWS applies. Like I said, I've always done privacy along when I did my NIST 800-53. They actually have a PII new module inside that PII module. They talk about privacy, but once again, they didn't really pull it out into its own security family, which I thought was interesting. Once again, showing my love to AWS. When you do anything in the cloud, if I was the chief security information officer, GDPR cover me because AWS has the policies, the procedures. They have 500 plus features and services focused on security and compliance that will cover you for GDPR. So I'm just gonna read it now. Looks like I'm buffering a little bit. Let me know if I'm buffering a lot. So So I'm just going to read the GDPR sent for AWS. Like I said, AWS, usually has you covered in a lot of things. So the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) protects European Union individuals' fundamental rights to privacy and protection of data. GDPR includes robust requirements and raises and harmonizes standards of data protection, security, and compliance. Please review the GDPR FAQ below for information. So harmonize just basically means is they know you're gonna need more than just GDPR if you're doing cybersecurity, especially if you're doing federal level cybersecurity, right? You're still gonna have NIST 800-53. You got DISA-STIG, CIS on top of HIPAA, on top of GDPR. So the harmonizing means whatever's the most stringent security will be the most applied for your environment, and AWS can help you with that documentation. Right. AWS customers can use all AWS services to process personal data as defined in GDPR. This is uploaded to AWS services under the AWS accounts customer data in compliance with the GDPR. In addition to our own compliance, AWS is committed to offering services and resources to our customers to help them comply with the GDPR requirements. Right. So that's one thing you do when you go to AWS. It's going to help you, right? It's shared responsibility. I always say that with AWS. They're going to take the care of the routers, the disks, the data center, the badging, the FBI checks or European checks, where their personnel works for, right? How they spin up VMs, right? That's going to be part. And you have to do security in, right? Like we talked about, programming of the cookies. When you get a cookie, can a cookie track you? When somebody in the program says delete this record, are you marking as delete or do you have to physically delete it? Right? If you GDPR and you running programming in EU, you got to physically delete that record, right? So that's kind of the part you as the programmer, you as the customer of AWS has to take care of. Once again, I have for information on what AWS is doing, and they had a bunch of blogs to read about, bunch of blogs to kind of level set you. So I just kind of want to touch on that. Once again, I'm like I said, I'm bad about that, and I'm gonna read that one more two part to it. Right, is data security focuses on protecting the data from the theft and the breaches, whereas privacy governs how data is being collected, shared, and used. Right, because Google got in trouble because they were letting their third-party administrators, I mean third-party vendors, they gave them access to too much information. So one of the vendors that was doing around the last president race, they stole a couple $100 million. I'm talking about 100 million rows of data, right? Because they were letting them figure out what political you party, where do you think you would vote, what district do you vote in. A lot of people don't realize is Facebook make a ton of money on political candidates and how they run those races. How do you run those races and how do you identify? Right? Because with the right IP address, I can usually tell you what zip code you look in and where you look into. Right. Then two is privacy from a company and stuff is cool, but privacy from you personal. How you like you said, where you buying stuff? Are you checking in? Do you have your location on? So what privacy are you giving up? So one thing I always tell my students is Facebook is free because you giving them your privacy data, right? That's the currency Facebook uses for you to use their platform for free, right? Is the privacy you give up. One of my students I thought said something clever. He said, if you don't know what the product is, you are the product, right? So Facebook, you are the product. I don't think a lot of people realize that, right? You see all those ads to side, right? Because they know what you like, what you buy. But the weird thing is, I've never bought anything from a Facebook ad. And consider they make billions of dollars every year. I'm like, how are they doing? They're doing it by, like I said, ads. You selling ads, you buying ads. But I've never clicked on an ad and bought anything from from Facebook in that way. So let me know if you have any questions. I think that CDPSC, it was in the top five, Tobias. When I looked up the top five search, it didn't rank them within the top five, but they said those were the top five search that were in privacy, Tobias. So that's what I got. So I hang tight. Let me know if you got any questions. Like I said, I just want to touch on privacy a little bit. Something I very rarely do, but something I need to be more conscious of in that. Two, don't forget the introduction to cybersecurity class. That one kicks off Sunday at 3. I think we're on the ninth week. We always pick a topic. I haven't looked at the slides for that, but that's Sunday at 3 p.m. If not, catch us on the replay. You can always do it because you know it's gonna post. That's all I got. I want everybody to have a great Thursday. I can see the weekend, and I need it. I'm tired. That's all I got, fellas. If you need to shoot me something or send me something, look in my on my community tab. I think my email's on there. Professor Black Ops, all one word at gmail.com. Everybody have a great day.